Welcome again to the Unlearning Curve podcast. My name is Stuart Delony, and I am joined by JD Forehand and Karl Forehand. The Unlearning Curve is the place where we talk about anything from mental health to shit about religion.
Elephants on a bridge and stuff like that.
Yeah, elephants on a bridge. It's about anything. Yeah. And if you are interested in reaching out to us as a fan or a hater, it doesn't really matter. You can reach out to us at theunlearningcurvepodcast at gmail.com. Don't be worried, we don't bite unless you ask nicely. And in today's session, we are going to be hopping in to talk about one of America's dirty kinks. Let's talk about America's real fetish. We love to chant, eat the rich, but everything about how we live, how we buy, how we vote, how we pray, says otherwise. We're not eating the rich, we're feeding them. And we do it with a big, patriotic, white Jesus American smile. So as we begin this, in case anyone, Karl, do you know what a feeder is? Do I need the official definition of what a feeder kink is?
Yeah, you should probably explain that to me. I'm not always up on lingo as well as Jay.
Well, usually when we hang out, I always keep you quiet by feeding you the whole time while I watch. So that's so a feeder kink is a fetish where one person, the feeder, gets off sexually on overfeeding another person, the feedee. And often the point is they are wanting the feedee to become almost immobile, helpless, and grotesquely bloated. And it's the unofficial economic policy of the United States right now, with capitalism, billionaire worship, Jeff Bezos, Musk, all of these things too. So yeah, what do you guys think? Does America have a feeder kink problem?
We do. They're getting fat, very fat. They have we're probably going to have the world's first trillionaire soon, which is cool. Just let people have that much money while people are starving. I would say definitely. It's a weird feeder cult thing, but it's bad.
Yeah,
I read your article about that, and I thought of there's a Korean eating thing too, where they get on camera and overeat. So I kind of was thinking about that.
Mukbang.
Yeah, mukbang. And then...
Now what is this? Wait. Okay, JD, since you have experience with mukbang, what is the difference between that and a feeder kink now?
I don't like it, and I think the line is like somewhat small, honestly. But basically, like mukbangs are like, it's usually like streamers. Sometimes it's people who only do like food stuff, like food challenges or whatever. But it's sometimes like normal sized, whatever normal is, or like a little bit chubbier people. But a lot of times it's like really, really petite females, and they just eat a bunch of food on camera while like talking and live streaming. It's weird. I don't really like to like listen to people just talk with their like food in their mouth for 30 minutes, so it's not my thing. But yeah, younger people are into it, from what I've seen.
Is that just like ASMR, or is it more just like, let's see if this person can shove this much in their mouth and not puke?
I've heard different things from different people. Some people are like, oh, it's like gross. It's like kind of like this like disgusting like spectacle, which I mean we've engaged in for a very long time. I can remember certain videos with females in cups that was around when I was a child. And those were like the nice ones. But anyway, I don't know. I've had people say like, oh, I just like to like look at the food and like see what food they're eating, because sometimes they describe it. And then other people, I think it's like, oh, it's like a pretty girl. I don't know. I think it's different things for different strokes for different folks, so to speak, I suppose.
So to speak.
So what do we think? Do we actually, like in America, because we complain about this, everyone loves to complain about billionaires. Do you think we actually hate them, or are we just mad that we're not one of them?
I think it's the high of righteousness. That was the word, that phrase that kept coming up while I read your blog, which Stuart's writing is really good, by the way. So read it. And it's the high of righteousness that I always describe as God is on our side and we're right. We're right and God is on our side. And my friend Bob calls that the high of righteousness. I'm in the right group. I have the right pastor. I have the right president. And even though he's a shithead and he's horrible, I'm going to keep feeding him because some of that will trickle down, right? To use an 80s philosophy, it'll trickle down to me and I'll get favor. I've watched J.D. Vance and Rubio, and you can just see it all over their face that they're sitting beside this terrible, terrible person. He's saying stupid, ignorant things, and they're just enduring, thinking, and JD may be a little more moving over to the dark side than he used to be, and certainly he is. But it's with the promise of I'm on the right team, and we're accomplishing this. The anti-abortion agenda or whatever their agenda is now. We're defeating evil. We're high on this thing of we're doing the right thing. There's, Mark Driscoll called it the bodies behind the bus, right? So we keep feeding people like Mark Driscoll and President Trump and those people in power. When we feed them, hopefully we get what we want somehow indirectly, and it usually doesn't happen. The people in prosperity churches are poor usually, and they're old, and they give up everything so their leader can have a jet, like you mentioned.
So, Karl, I like how you're putting it. That do you think it's that it's kind of like I feel better because I'm on the right team?
It is.
Even if my team is winning, it's like I'm winning, even if I can't pay my mortgage or whatever. As long as we're on a winning team, I feel cool. Is it? Say that again, JD.
Say it, JD.
I said, I think in a lot of cases, it's people living vicariously through those people. Just like the old alcoholic that comes to the Friday football game and says, "Yeah, coach, you fucking suck. You run faster. Why didn't you run this play?" It's the same idea. Is that you're washed up. You never actually accomplished it yourself, but you can get this little high by watching someone else do what you could never do. I think that's part of it, and that's, I think, back to the earlier thing you were talking about, Stuart, there's also this predisposition in America because we have this like mythos of the American dream that's like, no, that could be me one day, just one, turn of luck. And to some degree, that's kind of true in the fact that we run our system like a fucking gambling establishment. But it's also the fact that like most wealth is passed down intergenerationally, and most people never change the class that they were born in because we live in a hierarchical society. It's, we can, it is capitalism to some degree, but it's oftentimes capitalism for thee and not for me, or socialism for the best of the companies, because they oftentimes take public losses that get bailed out and then they take privatized gains that they give to their shareholders. So that's always, do love when that happens. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit off the topic, but the point being is that we definitely, the way that our system and our mentality is in the United States, we absolutely are pain pigs for just giving the rich all of our own shit as we starve to death.
I think it's also organizations. Something happened towards the end of our third ministry where my wife had went, and she talks about it in the book, out into the desert. So she went out with Abby, when our first daughter, when Abby was of legal drinking age, and had a glass of wine with her. And
I know
we were involved or starting a ministry to homeless, and then all of a sudden the meeting I thought I was going to, there was 4 or 5 extra people there, and they were wanting to correct me. Now for me, that wasn't a huge thing. I just said, I'll probably keep drinking occasionally. I'm not going to come to church drunk. I'm not going to come to church drunk, but I probably won't change anything. And I was able kind of to forgive and not hold that against them. But it hurt my wife deeply. It hurt her because she realized there's a whole bunch of people talking about her behind her back, and all they're interested in is not my well-being, not how we felt about it. They were interested in preserving the organization. And so many people fold to that, hoping that if the organization survives, that I'll somehow benefit from that. So, and there's a lot
if you can push people down in the organization too, you can possibly free up a spot for yourself, which is why they shit all over people, even though I know for a fact those people that you're talking about have younger, either children or nieces, nephews, relatives that I was friends with that were definitely drinking underage, mind you, not even of legal age. So it's bullshit, but it's ladder climbing. It's the whole thing. It's, we better make sure we keep those tax cuts for the rich so they can keep getting fed, because I'm going to cut the fucking Achilles tendons of the person above me and pull them off the ladder and try to climb up above them, and then do what every rich person in the United States does, which is pull the ladder up after you, so no one else can ever do the same thing.
Can I talk about there's something that's really open right now in public, and this may be off topic, But so we watch what Trump does to people like Rubio, right? We see it. He, during the campaign, humiliated Rubio, called his wife ugly, and made fun of him being short and just humiliated him.
He made fun of Ted Cruz's wife, okay? He said he wasn't going to spill the beans on her.
Okay. And but he was also mean to Rubio and made fun of little Mark Rubio.
He's an asshole.
Little Mark Rubio. But then, but here's what happens next, and this is the way Hitler works. This is the way pastors work. A lot of times, it's the way everybody in power works. Is that you humiliate them first. Your followers don't let them get a job anywhere. They can't support their family. They come crawling back, and you say, all right, only under my conditions will you. Mm-hmm. You're going to sit in cabinet meetings and praise me. I'm just going to humiliate you. And all you can hope for is that someday I die or something changes, that you get some of this power. It's not just that. It's not just the power or the money. It's the manipulation by the people at the top to keep little people small. They love when their subordinates compete with each other and destroy each other. They love it when you go to war for them against the other team and so on. But the whole thing, there's just no regard for the person. There's no regard for the person. And the Christian right, the Republicans, all of those groups are having a hard time answering the least of these questions. If you're following Jesus, he said, the most important thing is the least people among you, meaning the poor. And he always talked about the abject poor, the lowest rung. You got to care about that if you follow me. They claim to be his representative, but that's exactly what they never do. Mm-hmm. Only poor people are paraded out as examples that he cares for people, even though his stories are made up.
No, you're right, Karl. I mean, so much of this it's the idea that the system, or whoever's atop the hierarchy of this, needs to be able to keep those below it in a submissive state. So we've got little Marco on his hands and knees for whatever Trump wants him to do. That's how Trump keeps his little docile feeders under him doing that, which I will note that supposedly Stormy Daniels, he had Stormy Daniels spanking him with the Fortune magazine. So I don't know, like behind closed doors, Trump's a little bit of a sub or a bitch, but in public, he needs the fealty. He needs them bowing down. He needs them doing that because just stroking the ego and keeping the machine moving forward.
And he sees it as love. He thinks that Putin likes him when Putin manipulates him. And he sees it as love for the people he abuses. He just doesn't know. He's so ignorant of anything involving love or compassion that it's foreign to him. He just doesn't understand.
He also has a room temperature IQ, and his dad was a huge piece of shit who was like incredibly abusive. But he's also dumb as a fucking box of rocks. Like one of the dumbest human beings I've ever heard open their mouth. It's embarrassing.
But my question though is, it's easy for us to call him stupid and say that and that he's unintelligent and he doesn't understand about empathy and all of that. He has the capacity. I mean, I feel like he has the capacity. I mean, everyone has the capacity to realize when they're being a shit. Now, is it easier to stay in your own echo chamber where everyone just fluffs you and just blows you all day long? Yes, that's easier to stay there. But I mean, I feel like that's almost giving him an out. Because I do think if all this facade fell down, it's one of those situations where I feel like you have people that are this far off like him, and if he was ever to look in the mirror and see himself for who he was, I think it would just crush him.
Yeah.
Which otherwise you need to have everyone else around him telling him, no, you're great, you're wonderful, you're amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need that stuff. Is it's performative, and it's to show everyone else, yes, I have fealty, I have loyalty, even though it's totally in disrepair. But I think if you have a strong leadership position and people respect you, you probably don't need to show that off as much. But that's why all the 10-pot fucking dictators do their parading of the tanks, as we saw with Trump as well. It's just it's all a show. It's an attempt. It's a performance to try to get that thing that they never got, that love from their dad or whatever it is. I think in Trump's case, it literally is that. But yeah, it's unfortunate when you hand the reins of a country over to a ding dong like that.
He just went to the UN and complained about the escalator and the prompter. Turns out both of those things were his staff's fault.
Of course they were.
Triggered the thing on the elevator because they were trying to get footage of him coming up the golden escalator. Leaders, the world leaders, you can see it all over their face, how stupid they think he is and how disgusting it is, the things he talks about. He just told them all their countries are going to hell and mumbling and so on, but they can't speak up because he's a deranged lunatic and they don't know what he's going to do next, whether they destroy things through economic policies or attack them. We saw that it attacked a boat that don't have any proof was doing anything wrong. Those are just signs to remind us that he's unstable and he can do anything.
But it's like the perfect metaphor for the American church. You have some deranged leader that says, I have it all figured out. I'm the only one that knows this.
Yeah, let's talk
and
about
all of
that.
The rest of the world, all these other crazy people, they don't see what I got, that I got the magic sauce. I know what's going on and all of this. But that's kind of how we are when you're outside of a cult and you're looking and you're going, this is fucking nuts. What is this? Like, he's not even like speaking in complete sentences. He's just going off everywhere. Tylenol's killing everybody and all of this kind of stuff. Inside of these systems that have forced us to be submissive, like the church, then it works. But outside of it, where people aren't controlled by it, they're just like, what the fuck is he talking about? And I feel like it's basically just the American church right here. We've got Trump just speaking out his ass.
We listen
a
to
fun exercise to do with that stuff. Is to take just like you can take Trump's words, you can take like religious, especially evangelical like language. I've done this with my students before who obviously have no context for like that kind of language. And when you start showing it to people, they're like, what is this? Like when it's like, yeah, I kneel down before you and you pour yourself into me. And my kids are like, is this smut? Are we reading smut right now? And I'm like, no, it's not. Well, it kind of is, but it's smut for Jesus. So it's good, or it's supposed to be. I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable though. But I mean, that's what
Turning Point USA's motto: "Smut for Jesus."
Yeah. They're pain pigs for God. But it's really what it is. But that's how you like figure that stuff out. I mean, I've also, this is a side example, but I've also used the American tax system that I've explained, and also the American health insurance system, where I've explained it to people not from America, and they just go, "I'm sorry, what? A deductible? But you pay but you have to a deductible. That's a new word. Don't know that word." And then you have to explain it, and they're just like, oh, "Okay." And I'm like, "So you understand why I don't live in America?" And they're like, "Yeah." But I think that's a good way to see it, is if you can give it to an outsider and just go, "Is this fucking crazy?" And they'll be like, yeah, that's it.
Before I tell the story,
God's ways aren't our ways, JD, which is the ultimate out on everything, to where it's just like, got me again. You're right.
Yeah.
Back in line.
What do we call those? We call those thought terminating cliches. Remember those, folks. That's one of my favorite new words.
Before I tell this, I just want to say it's a trigger warning to survivors of abuse, so you might want to not listen. But we just heard a survivor story last night that's going to be on our podcast. And I read her book. She was molested by her boyfriend. She's about 16. He was so intensely abusive that the first thing he did when she mentioned that she had concerns over the relationship is he threatened to cut her breasts off and shoved the knife up her vagina. And he was that violent. And he was that... And she was in a Mennonite church that believed in nonviolence, so it was really hard to protect herself. But it kind of helps with the understanding of when it gets to a high level of violence and threat and so on. People ask, why don't survivors leave? Why don't victims leave? Sometimes because they can't. They literally can't. And she was prohibited by her belief system. When she finally got pregnant by this guy, she had to be shamed and humiliated by her church because that was what she believed and that was what she had to do. And her dad couldn't beat this guy up because he was nonviolent, and he actually went to jail to avoid signing up for the war. So it's serious, and the more diluted and demented, the better. And And people might think we're silly applying that to church, but church in general has a lot of manipulation techniques and a lot of fear. If fear wasn't in it, the girl that read my book and said, well, if you don't have hell, what do you have? And I'm like, exactly. If you don't have the negative, the worst example of cruelty in history is that God tortures people forever. I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy. I've never tortured anybody except JD. No. And, I spanked him a couple of times, I think, but not many. But I can't even imagine.
Revisionist history.
Somebody. But the higher the threat, the more fierce that threat or that fear can be instilled in you, the easier you are to control and the less you're going to resist. And the easier it's going to be for them to do things like just take your money and it's all right if you're poor because I can be rich and you get some of my glory, And maybe we get a high of righteousness a little bit from that, but we usually kind of suffer more than we're.
And Karl, that interview you just mentioned, that's on the Desert Sanctuary podcast?
Yeah, it will be in about a week or so.
Just wanted to make sure, not confusing anybody. What do we think when we're talking about these systems, whether it be capitalism or even like church systems that force us into submission? What does resistance start to look like in the systems that we're still actively feeding at the same time, especially with consumerism? What do you think resistance should or look like?
I was going to say resistance.
I think it has to do with community building.
Go ahead, JD.
That's called ontology, Father. Yeah, I think it looks like building community, and to the point that Dad was kind of talking to earlier, I think the need for those kinds of like threats of violence within, whatever political system or the religious system of Christianity, having to have that kind of gimmick of like, well, you may not believe me and it may be far-fetched and I may not have that much evidence, but you'll go burn in eternal hellfire if you don't believe me. So ha ha ha. Like, it's just such a weak, vapid argument. And I don't know. I mean, it's obviously frustrating, but in some ways, it's as distressing as it is that the people this deranged, incompetent, whatever adjectives you want to throw in there, get into power, whether in again politics or the church. Sometimes it is reassuring that they're like this incompetent. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's very dangerous when they're in like the top seats of power, but it does also mean that there's the possibility of possibly getting around that. And then I guess to more directly answer the question was just asked, I think it's community building. It's building those bridges between communities and between individuals and trying to find some sort of common ground, some understanding, like we were talking about in the first episode, is that before community can be built and before then actual building can occur in terms of the giving of aid or these kinds of symbiotic relationships that we can expand, we have to first build the foundation of those relationships and then expand on those. I think it will grow up from there. And I think, again, we've talked about this in previous episodes. I think that starts local grassroots level, starts with your neighbor. I mean, I think, whatever we want to say about Jesus, I think that's one of the reasons that he talks so much about your neighbor is because it's right in front of you and it's something that's attainable, as opposed to saying, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to sail the 7 seas and go be a missionary in Papua New Guinea and probably get nothing accomplished, but I'll look really cool and I can put it on Instagram and maybe it'll get the church more donations. So I think instead of engaging in that sort of public spectacle, which again, going back to Jesus, he told us not to engage in, I think we should just be where we are, be who we are, and maybe be at peace.
Heard that before.
I heard it from a guy I know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you don't want to end on that, we can end on this, which is, let us all work together to build a bright planet, a planet where we all share a better planet of peace and a world that is richer, better, and more beautiful than ever before. That can happen. It will happen. I think those are beautiful words.
Yeah.
Don't mean anything.
Ask questions. JD's taught me to ask questions. Yeah. When I was a safety guy, I used to ask my boss, Are you saying you're willing to risk, the eyesight of your people, your assistant manager, because you don't make him wear his safety glasses and you won't let me enforce that? Are you willing to risk that? And I just put it back on him. But you can only do that through questions and carefully worded questions sometimes to people. I'm learning that. Because I come from a line of authoritative people and high control religion. So it's a process.
I think I like the idea of asking questions. I think it also lends us to ask questions of ourselves and how we spend money and how we consume, because I think America does have this issue of just gobble, gobble, gobble. I need more. Every day is Black Friday or Prime Day or whatever, and I feel like there is a hunger for things that we don't necessarily need. I mean, we have landfills full of our trash that continue to pile up more and more of just garbage that we don't need. And so I think us just as people stepping back and asking ourselves, can I buy this locally? Or do I need this? Or, is this something I could ask to borrow from my neighbor? Going back to what you were saying, JD, too, collectively living differently. And I think it's just us having a different relationship with money and seeing it as something more than simply just transactional.
You'll never find significance in a group. You'll never find significance following the right leader, quote unquote. You're only going to find significance when you do what your heart tells you to do, and you do it authentically. And you live kind of from that place. And you find out it's not really as much about what you do, but who you are and how you exist in the world. Get real philosophical at the end.
Yeah, but if that fails, you just need $1 billion yacht, and you don't have to worry about anything else. So, choices. Yeah. Great. Okay.